Ready?
Yeah, we're good.
All right, let's get started. Thank you very much for joining us today, everyone. The one person watching, maybe this isn't up to date.
It could be. That hasn't refreshed yet, maybe?
Maybe it's running in a lag, right?
We're going to say that, yeah.
My name's Jacob.
I'm Kayoe.
And welcome to this brand new year of Brilliant Labs Live. This is pretty exciting for us. We finally have our act in order, and
I think so,
as
right?
I was saying to Kayoe, I'm not sure if it was while we were live or before we went live, this is the first time that we have lights, we have a mic, we have two cameras, and they all seem to be working.
Keep our fingers crossed that it
Fingers
stays
crossed,
that way,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
But
So anyway, thank you very much for joining us. This is not really a new series, but in this Brilliant Labs Live, we are going to do something new live in front of you in less than an hour. We really don't want to keep you all that long. Keep in mind that these videos are archived and you come back to our Brilliant Labs channel and you can check them out anytime that you would like. The whole point of this series is to give you an opportunity to look at how we may integrate some of this technology that we have around in our makerspaces directly into our curriculum. Today's theme we chose was classroom enhancements. So what do we mean by classroom enhancements?
well, just every day, lots of things that we already do in our classroom, and how can we enhance or improve those things so that they become more easily usable and that kind of thing, right?
Absolutely. I always go back to this this example of how can we track data around our classroom? Like, what if we could use technology or even low-tech or no-tech technology options to track student data, like every time that a door opens. Actually, that was yours, you know?
Yeah. Yours is always the pencil sharpener,
The pencil
right?
sharpener. What if there was a way that we can systematically tell how many rotations of the old school pencil sharpener a student requires to sharpen a pencil by brand?
Yeah.
Right? So all this data is floating around in our classroom, and we have the devices in order to track it. We just need a front-end code, a piece of software, in order to track the very hardware, tactile, tangible things that are happening in our classroom.
That's right. All this activity that's already going on in the classroom, how can we turn that into moments where we can actually apply curriculum to that and make it enhanced?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Before we get into today's video, we should bring our viewers, our one viewer, that can't be up to date.
I don't know.
Right? I don't think so. Our one viewer, up to date on a couple of things that are happening over on our website as well as our YouTube channel. And there are two things in particular, actually three, that I want to mention. The first is, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We assure you that there's going to be more video content coming out. And if you've been watching over the summer, there's one new piece of content that we're really excited about. You want to tell them about it?
Sure.
I'll bring it up.
Sure. So this past summer, half of my time I actually spent on the road as usual with my family, going camping, going to the beach, things like that. And before summer even started, the idea came to me, why not incorporate the sort of maker mentality into that? A lot of times, my daughter and I, Gracie, we are always inventing and creating, and why not make it possible for us to do that on the road? And on top of that, wouldn't it be cool if I took people along with me and kind of shared our sort of creations and innovations that we do on the road? So it was a lot of fun. We ended up making a few videos, and there'll be more to come for sure throughout the school year too. But all of those video series always start out with a challenge. They were always challenge-based, problem-based, where we were faced with a complication or something that we needed to resolve, and we ended up solving those problems through code and through making different devices. And each one sort of is accompanied with a step-by-step walkthrough, links to the curriculum and how it can be tied into the classroom and things like that. So very useful to educators for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, I'm sorry, I'm just distracted. One of our 3D printers is going through a couple of bangs and bops and weird noises. And I would love to be able to show you the video of Kayoe on the go, but we're having technical difficulties. I think we're probably stealing all the bandwidth
We could be
with this live stream right now. So go to our YouTube channel, just search in YouTube, Brilliant Labs. You'll see all of our previous videos, and you'll also be able to catch Kayoe on the go, as well as we've done a soft launch, soft launch of our first innovation challenge for the school year. And it's a Halloween hacking and animatronics challenge. And if you see this guy right here, it may give you an indication of what this is all about. To hack as well as to animate your own Halloween prop.
Super fun.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
One final thing that we're really excited about. What are we doing this weekend?
We are going to
Maker Faire, and I want to see all of these pennants that you're going to be waving around. I was hoping to do a wordplay on pennants, but anyway, it didn't come. Anyway, print it off. We're super excited to be able to send 47 teachers from New Brunswick all the way to New York City to attend the 8th annual New York Maker Faire.
Yeah, super cool.
Right?
Lots of inspiration and lots of project ideas and things for the classroom that are come out of that for sure. All over the province.
Yeah. So if you haven't already, make sure you log on to Twitter and follow Brilliant Labs. And we're going to be tweeting nonstop and hopefully be even taking some video. So enough about all of this. Why don't we get into today's topic of classroom enhancement?
Yeah. And so for us, we were sort of thinking there are lots of things. We already started to list different examples of how you can enhance the classroom, like the pencil sharpener, recording every time the door is opened. And so for us, what we wanted to do is kind of focus on one that I'm sure a lot of us in our classroom have maybe used before or seen, and kind of focus on that and see if we can take an old idea or an old technique or strategy and make it a bit more techy and improve it, enhance it, right?
You know, as well as everyone watching, I'm a huge geek, right? I taught math for years, and I love it. No? Is that the first time that you're realizing this?
Yeah, first time. I never really, didn't occur to me.
Yeah, and you don't have to be a math teacher to use one of these handy-dandy, tried, tested, and true methods of randomly drawing names. And I'll tell you, I had a hard time with getting through most of the material, and we had all kinds of fun in math and things like that. And one of those outcomes that I tried to put throughout the year was the probability of independent events, right? Not dependent, but independent events. Yeah. And the way that I was able to fit probability, and it's a very simple grade 8 concept, into the classroom instruction without it being a long, drawn-out unit that we have to cover, was every time that I would hold up the pencil cup, and we're not talking about inclusive education policies and, you know, who I'm going to randomly draw on, you know, and things like that. I always wanted to make sure that I was inclusive such that I wasn't drawing on someone that I knew didn't want to be drawn on and things like that, right? So I asked the students, Kayoe, assuming that there are 6 students in here, what is the probability that I am going to draw Kayoe's name?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, of course, by the 18th time that I would do this, you know, 18 days in, and I did it every day, you know, they would say 1 in 6. And then what's the probability of me being able to put this back in and draw that would bring in the independent events?
Right.
So I love this old name generation strategy.
For sure.
But it's old.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with it, but looking around with Scratch and with the Makey Makey, I'm curious, is there a way that we can create a Scratch-enabled random name generator?
For sure, right? And it's just taking those same concepts. Scratch allows us to use things like probability and randomization, all those concepts to actually do this kind of thing virtually, right?
Cool. Well, I'm going to hand this over to you if you want to take that.
So what we're going to do next is kind of give a quick walkthrough on how this can be done. For anybody who isn't familiar with Scratch as much as the average person, this is what we're using here is the offline editor. You can see up here it's called offline editor. And all that means is that it's the software that has been downloaded onto Jacob's computer here. It's pretty much the same as what you'd find online, except the difference here is that it's not as easy to sort of share your projects with other people in the Scratch universe, right?
What's nice though is if you have it downloaded onto your system, it's always going to be there.
Yeah, and you don't need an internet access, things like that. So there's a benefit to it there. You don't have to make sure you have Wi-Fi or connect to the internet in different ways in order to get on here and start using it. So what we're going to do is kind of go into this. I'm going to get my cheat sheet out just so I can remember how we made this. First of all, a quick explanation of the setup, the sort of interface that we're looking at here. Scratch is set up kind of like a theater production. This here is called the stage. Here, and this is where everything that we have happen, all the animations, any sort of interactions that go on between the characters and things, all sort of takes place here. Below that, we have the sort of listing of all the different characters. We call them sprites in Scratch. Here on the right-hand side of the interface is where we build our code. And then in the middle here is where we can pick from the different blocks to create that code. And you can see that it's all divided into sections. We have some that relate to motion, some that relate to looks and sound and so on. What we're going to do, Scratch is an event-based type of code. We're going to start off with an event. And what we're going to do up here, you see the green flag. Typically, the green flag is a common sort of event to use in order to start lines of code. So we're going to start out by using that hat. And all we're going to do is say that on the green flag clicked, we want Scratch to ask a question. So here inside sensing, we're going to have it ask this question. Okay? Now, what we want to ask, because in order to create a name, a list of names, we want to know how many people are in the group, right? So how many people are in the class? So we can start out by asking this simple question. How many, we can say students, let's say, just to make this more.
Sorry, I'm just tweeting out some storm to get a tweeting out some storm. Creating a Twitter storm.
A Twitter storm.
To try to get
awesome.
a few more viewers here.
All right, so how many students are in your class? So we're going to start out just by asking that. Now, what we want to do is take the information that we're giving the Scratch program and put it into what's called a list. If we go into data, data is where typically we find things like variables. And variables are used quite often. A lot of people, though, don't actually utilize lists the way that they should be used. They're actually very useful parts of Scratch code. So if we want to make a list, we click on Make a List, and it comes up here, and we can see that we're asked to name it. So we can name our list Names. Hit OK. And once we do that, you can see a whole list of other blocks that come up that relate to that list. Now, what we want to do is once we ask this question, how many students are in your class, we want that number to actually produce, you can see here's our list up here, produce a number of entries that should be in this list, right? So what we want to do is go in, and if we go to control, you can see in control we have our loops, right? So if we grab a loop, we want to ask a second question. And we're going to ask, the question that we're going to ask is basically what everybody's name is, right? So that question will actually be inserted into this loop. And we're going to repeat that question the number of times that we've stated as our answer to this question, right? So we ask the question, how many students are in your class? That answer then is the number that's going to repeat this question that's then inside of this loop. The second question we're going to ask, let's stick this right in here. We can ask the question, what is your, oh, it's not even in there. Hang on.
There we go.
What is your name?
So if I was to relate this back to the old school cup,
Sure.
I mean, it's as if this old school cup has a conscience. You know, it has randomly become a sentient power in our classroom, and it is able to be told how many students there are in the class, and then it can apply its own algorithm of...
So this is saying basically we're asking how many popsicle sticks do we stick into the cup,
Right.
and then what names are we going to write on those popsicle sticks, right?
And then the cup, like a magic 8-ball, is going to tell us a random name.
Exactly. So what we're doing so far, just to recap, is that we're asking how many students are in your class, and then we're going to have it repeat the second question the number of times that we've stated. So say, for example, we've said, oh, there's 5 students in my class. It's then going to ask this question 5 times. Now, what we want to do, as it's asking this question, the second question, is we want to add the answer that we give to this question to the list that we've called names. So if we go back into here, so I've gone into data, into lists, and I've said add thing to names. And we're going to switch the word thing with our answer block again.
Okay.
So now basically what we're saying is, ask this question, what is your name? When we type an answer to that question, it's going to add that name to our list that we see over here.
Okay. I find that step a little confusing. I get it now because I wrote the codes this morning, but that answer relates to the question immediately above it.
That's right.
Even though you're asking two different questions and it has the same block there, I thought, is the Scratch code going to get confused because it's the exact same block?
Yeah.
But I guess you're not really able to ask a series of questions.
That's right.
Then, okay.
Yeah. So basically, every time you see a question asked like this, the answer that's immediately, or the first answer it comes to, is going to be the answer to that question that it's asked. Right. So once that question has been answered, then this answer has nothing to do with this question. It has everything to do with the question that's here. Right.
Gotcha.
So after this, all we're going to do is run this. The only thing that's missing is that every time that we restart this, we want to clear our list.
Okay.
So if we go into here again, into our data, we can say delete, and instead of one, we want to say all of names. So this means that every time we want to make a new list, it'll just clear it when we hit our green flag.
And this is useful as well, if you have several different classes and you want to generate 4 different lists, or even if you have several different groups, this is a neat student activity because they can write the code, input their names, get a random name, and not that you have time to do that many times within your own class, but the blend of computational thinking and old school practices with new school execution is kind of neat.
Exactly, yeah. And the way to get around that, if you don't want to clear the list, you just get rid of that and it's just this. But if we were to implement this, we can hit the green flag. Well, the only thing that's missing, I guess you're right, is the randomization, right? The picking the random. So in order to do this, to simplify it, if we go back into events, essentially what we've done is, at this point, we've created a list. Right? So the only step that's missing now is how do we get Scratch the Cat to choose a random name from that list, right? And so in events, we have all kinds of different events. The easy one I chose, because Scratch is there, is when this sprite is clicked, right? And so when this sprite is clicked, all you're going to do, or all that I did to sort of bring this up and to make it, into looks. Looks is a section that kind of talks about changing colors of the sprites. It also talks about that you can have them say things or think different things. So all I did is choose a say, and if I go back into here, I can choose under data again, I can choose the block that's labeled item, again, number of names. And instead of number, we can go in and choose Jacob's favorite word, random, right?
I do love random.
So make sure that's still, Okay? And that's the code. That's literally it.
Really?
Yeah. So if we were to run this, let's run it. How many students are in your class? So we can say, let's say 2. Right. We'll say 3.
Sure.
Right? To make it a bit more interesting.
Yeah.
So what's your name? It's going to ask me once. I'm going to write my name. What's your name?
Neat.
We're going to enter your name.
I love how the whole block of code is highlighted in yellow, meaning that block of code is active. And there we are.
It's done, right?
Cool.
So now all we have to do is every time we want to generate a random name, click on Scratch. Whoops, I didn't click on them.
There it is.
And it's chosen a random name. So there's yours. Once it disappears, Jeff's name comes up.
That is cool.
My name. And then it's totally randomized.
Okay, so theoretically, keeping with this probability theme, if we were to click that 100 times, 33 1/3 repeating times should come up with one of those names.
Yeah, and there's the assessment piece, right? You could totally take this and end up testing those theories on whether or not the sort of on paper theory of how many times my name will appear, you can test that out and actually see if it is in real life.
That's cool.
Going to be doing
and if we didn't have 3 names and we had 18 or 27 names on there, it would show up as well, right?
The lists would all show up here with everybody's name.
Cool.
It would show you how many people are in that list, so you can confirm that you've got everybody.
Right.
And then every time you do this event, and this
Right.
could be a different thing. I mean, you could have this as, we could take this out, and let's switch this event to Space Key.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Now, you know what? Before we get into that, and what I was just thinking, we didn't talk about this beforehand, was a lot of classrooms have smart boards, interactive whiteboards, right?
Yeah.
So they could full screen this sketch, and then, I guess we can full screen it, right? Just like this, and then you would be able to go up and double tap on the scratch cat and have it generate the name.
Yeah, and that's awesome. That's a really cool way of getting the kids engaged into the activity, right? Where they're physically touching the scratch cat instead of using a mouse, for sure.
That's cool.
The interesting thing, I mean, we've talked about the randomization, probability, all these kinds of things. In this, it's we want to present these kinds of activities or these ideas as something that teachers incorporate the student. They use, everybody's working together to actually produce this item. It's not something that a teacher produces and everybody uses. It's everybody makes together, right? And so you're going through this process. You're figuring out how to make it happen. And
I would imagine a lot of teachers watching, or watching it after it's archived, would say, hey, you know what? I don't have a lot of time right now, but I enjoy that concept. I get where it's going. All of my students are, or a lot of them are using Scratch. I wonder if I can just say, can you make a Scratch version of this? Right? And then that would get the students thinking and, being involved in the classroom tool construction and things like that.
Exactly.
All right. What if I have a Makey Makey?
Ooh,
right?
Then it gets interesting.
Okay. And of course, we love the Makey Makey here at Brilliant Labs. We have seen hundreds of classroom teachers and students using the Makey Makey, and it is the best bang for your proverbial makerspace buck to purchase the Makey Makey. Really quickly, the Makey Makey is able to turn any conductive material into a keystroke or a mouse press. So it essentially becomes a virtual keyboard, and not a virtual keyboard at all. It can
an extension of your keyboard.
Extension of your keyboard, and you can make a keyboard out of any conductive material. So my thought right now, the Makey Makey has a space key on it. You've coded this. Every time that we hit the space key, we're going to generate a name, right? So how can we make this whole process physical? Because, if I'm in a classroom, I would kind of like this idea of having one central location where I can go over, hit a button, boom, the name pops up.
Yeah.
Well, enter. Now this is really cool.
Red button.
The big red button. I'm reminded of countless hours of watching American Ninja and thinking, wow, I wish I'd be able to push that big red button, and now we can.
We can, yeah.
Anyway.
And generate a name.
Right? So this is going to be our conductive material. Maybe we can just switch over to the desk view.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get us over on this so people can see.
Okay, great. We apologize for how blurry it is. It's just the state of the camera setup that we have here. Something that we're going to work on, though. Now, you don't need one of these arcade buttons. In fact, I encourage your students to make a very, low-tech, tactile button interface. So this is just, a pressure switch. And I'm not sure how much you can see there.
There you go.
There it is.
Yeah.
On each side of the switch, we have it connected to two wires and then this conductive tape and things like that. And so when you push it together, it closes the circuit, and that sends, or it closes, therefore completes the circuit and sends a signal through the Makey Makey back into the computer. Well, and this is great. You know what? In fact, why don't we go with the pressure switch, because not everyone's going to have a big red button.
Sure.
And we'll use this as the semi-final production.
Yeah,
all right?
definitely.
Okay. So we're going to hook the Makey Makey up. And if you're not sure, if you're just getting started with the Makey Makey and all that you have done, and I certainly don't want to minimize this because this is cool in and of itself, is playing the bongos or doing your own carrot piano, that's fine, but there's so much more with the Makey Makey once you have a Scratch front end. But if you are looking for a video on how to hook up the Makey Makey, check out some of our videos on our channel. There are two there that take you through how to set up a Makey Makey. So we're the principal. What am I looking for? Alligator clips. They're there right in front of me.
Yeah.
The idea behind the Makey Makey is simple. It's completing a circuit, and we need positive and negative for that circuit. And in this case, we're going to use the earth hookups on the bottom and one alligator clip. It certainly doesn't matter if it's black or any color. Many students ask that, oh, I thought I have to use black or I have to use red. Imagine that. Color does not determine continuity of the circuit.
With the Makey Makey.
With the Makey Makey. So now I'm just going to take the other alligator clip and hook it up to space, and we can test this circuit. Why don't we flip back to Scratch and see if this generates the name?
Click on this.
I think we just click on the scene there in OBS.
Oh, flick back. Oh,
right?
Gotcha.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry,
there
guys.
we are. And then we're going to have to clip back.
There we go.
Okay, so now I'm touching these two together, and there we are, KO for 2 seconds, and another one, still KO.
Ooh, I got it again.
All right, here we are. You should go out and buy a lottery ticket. Just joking, gambling is bad. And Jeff, there we are. We went through the whole spectrum of students.
Yeah.
So that's a very simple one. And, going further, you know where I'm going with this.
I do.
Right? We can complete the circuit by high-fiving. I can tap your forehead. You went in for the block there, right?
I did. I was trying to deflect you, which would still generate a name, wouldn't it?
It would, exactly. Okay, so let's get to the pressure pad. I have black and red here. Certainly doesn't matter for polarity because we're just closing a circuit.
Yeah.
And we hook these two up, and we press the pressure pad, and there we go. KO.
Yeah.
What if I wanted a sound effect to play with it?
So let's try to get that figured out. If we wanted to have a sound effect, why not? Well, let's not do the cat sound. That's so. In sound, here's all these sort of selections we have. In Scratch, you can actually build. You can play with notes and things like that. Just flat out sounds are here. There's a few sounds that are already on file with Scratch. And all you do is just click on the drop down to choose, and you can see that one's already chosen. The rest, this here is to record a sound. We just have the cat sound, so let's go and try and choose something else. So up here,
this much tinfoil?
yeah, well that's perfect, I think, yeah. Up here, so we have our scripts, we have our costumes, which relates to different sort of positions of your character, and the third tab is your sounds. And what we want to do is choose a sound from the library. And what are you looking for here? What about...
Oh, I don't. Buzzword. I like that.
Where's that one then?
Right here.
Oh, buzzword. Okay. So let's click that and say OK. So now what's happened is we've added buzzword to our choices with sounds. And if we go back to scripts, all I'm doing, see here, I've just connected it to our event, there's space key. And if we click on the down arrow, we can now choose buzzword. So what's going to happen is if we follow this sequence through, when space key is pressed, it's going to play a sound and then select, he's going to say a random item from our names list. So you want to try that? Are you ready?
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, I'm just making our final iteration of the random name generator. I like it.
Yeah.
Let's turn it up so the viewers can hear it.
Get the full experience.
There we are.
Yeah.
I like that.
Jeez, I'm
much
getting it
better
a lot.
than the
It's
Scratch
always
Cat.
picking me. Listen to that. Oh, now it's you.
There you go. Okay. While I work on this, do you want to do the big red button?
Sure.
Where do we
this
get those
going.
big red buttons?
Here, let's switch to our desk. The big red buttons come from Adafruit, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. An awesome resource for buying different electronic components and things like that.
As well as their learning platform, you've likely seen the Adafruit flower, or maybe it's actually, anyway, I don't know, the Adafruit logo. Anyway, their learning platform is incredible, learn.adafruit.com. Great learning resources if you're just starting out with Arduino or 3D printing or intro to electronics.
So these go in the bottom and here, correct?
Yeah, I think so. So these arcade buttons actually have 4 leads coming off of them. 2 are for the positive and negative end of the tactile button built inside them. When you play those old school arcade buttons, they have the great rebounds or the bounce back rebounds.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So 2 of those are for that. And then the other 2, it actually has an LED in there as well. And we hardly ever hook that up, unfortunately, but you can do that. Okay, great. Yeah.
So let's do it. All right, so I'm going to switch these out. Take our space key and earth off. We can get rid of our pressure pad. And all we're doing is just going to swap what we had there with the wires coming off of our button. So again, because we don't have to worry about polarity, we can just connect either side of this button to the Makey Makey. All right, so our earth is connected and our space key, and then hopefully
There you go.
there we go, it works. So
I
just
love
like
it.
that. These things are great, eh? It's so easy
Yeah.
just to swap them out for different things. As long as they conduct electricity,
Yeah.
we can pretty much start to do any of this.
Absolutely.
Oh, I know what you're doing now.
You see this? Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm a stickler for aesthetics, right? And why are we refining a age-old, tried, tested, and true practice of the popsicle stick or tongue depressor? I won't put that in my mouth. Idea. And so what I'm thinking is, how can we keep the aesthetic appeal of the tongue depressors and paper cup, but turn it into a Makey Makey powered scratch activated system,
And
right?
even the physical action of pulling.
You got it,
Right?
exactly. Now, and that fell right out. Okay. If I have more time, I would use a few other construction materials, right, and make something a little better here. But this is the idea that I'm going for. I cut the bottom out of, I cut the bottom out of this paper cup, and I'm going to put two alligator clips in there. One, of course, going to the ground, and the other going to the space button. And I wrapped the I put a little piece of tinfoil in there, and that's going to be one side of the circuit. And I wrapped another tongue depressor here with tinfoil, and that's going to be my other side of the circuit. And the two electrodes, so I'm just going to hook this last one up to the tongue depressor, like that. And so red is going to be go. Big red button, big red popsicle
Big
stick.
red popsicle stick.
Okay, and we'll hook those up to the Makey Makey.
All right.
Someone's bent that alligator clip. Okay.
Got it?
All right, got it. And just for looks, I'm gonna put these back in there. Maybe I should have tested it before I crammed all of
That's
these
okay.
back.
That's the whole.
I don't know. Yeah,
It's
I'm gonna take
YouTube
those
Live,
out.
right?
What-
You got to do this.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Oh, click on
I'm
scratch
gonna click
for
on
me.
Scratch. Here
All
we
right,
go.
so, whoa! Okay, so I'm pulling it out to look at it.
Let's get the
pulling it
overhead
out to
view
look at,
of the actual
Here we
motion.
are. Here we are. Where are we? Okay, so you can just barely see the tinfoil in there, and you've got the tongue depressor. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling.
Oh,
you're not clicked on
'cause
scratch.
This is my fault.
Okay.
There we go. There we go.
All right. There we are. So that's the idea. Yesterday I was sketching out a couple of different ideas for this cup. And if I have more time, and if we do this again, this is kind of neat.
That is a neat one. I like that.
If teachers are out there listening and you want to invite us out to do this, with a group of your teachers, we promise we'll do more than just this. But I'll bring my original plans and then make my original idea. Right.
The interesting
Kinda
thing
come
is
through.
that there's a few different components here. You had said earlier, presenting the students with this cup and stick design or method and saying, make a scratch form version of this.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about this part of this piece of the puzzle is that you could challenge the students to make their own device that could make this, make their own button that could be pushed or...
Now, you know what? Thinking back to these color codes and when I was talking about accessible ways of selecting students so that it's inclusive and you're thinking about all of those conditions with the name generator, not wanting to draw on a student who doesn't necessarily want to be drawn.
Right.
Well, each popsicle stick could be a different color and be associated with a different list.
Right.
Because you don't necessarily, have to be constrained to one list in Scratch. You can make several. Is that right, or am I just making that up?
Well, you can, yeah. We can go into here and here. Let's go back to Scratch, and in data, you can make a new list if you wanted to. So you have
Okay.
more than just names. It could be names 1 or
Right.
group 1 or group 2
Or classes,
or
right?
classes.
7A, 7B, 7C.
Exactly. So
That's
we could
really neat.
divide them further into that and be able to focus your selection more specifically, right? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Now, one of the things when teachers and students are working with Scratch that they think about is, you know what, I love it. My student has made a Makey Makey inspired project. They have this idea for a whole installation, but it requires a laptop.
Right.
Right? And so the idea of this big, clean, aesthetically engaging installation kind of goes out the window, because then
Right.
how do you incorporate this CPU, the desktop or the laptop and things like that?
Right.
You know what the natural next level of engagement is
Yes.
by loading all of this up onto a Raspberry Pi.
Right. $30 computer. That's,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it comes preloaded, the operating system, with Scratch.
With Scratch.
And so students can do literally all of this, plug a Makey Makey in, and a big red button into that as well,
Yeah.
and away you go. Because
Yeah.
really, apart from creating the code, which you can do on any computer and then upload to the Raspberry Pi,
Yeah.
you don't need a monitor for the Raspberry Pi. So once your code's running, unplug that monitor, and then you have your button, your
It's
name
all
generator.
self-contained and
Yeah. Ooh,
yeah.
how are you going to see the name?
Oh, you do need the monitor.
You
That's
do
it.
need the monitor.
Unless, okay, we're getting a
No,
different way on tangents.
do it.
Unless you wire up speakers or something,
That
and
would
then
be
it's
cool.
listing the names. Yeah.
Because then, couldn't you have each name associated with a recorded sound file?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you could have students recording their own names.
They could. Definitely.
That's
Yeah.
kind of neat.
Yeah. That might be for another time, because in that we're selecting a random number and
Yeah.
associating that number with a sound file. But
Absolutely.
again, there's lots of other options than just laptops to make this happen.
Yeah, that's right.
And something like a Raspberry Pi is a perfect
Yeah.
example of how you can actually make this happen.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't need other peripherals. All you'd need is that monitor, right?
Yeah.
Because you'd have your Makey Makey connected to it, or another input or whatever.
Yeah.
And just the monitor being up there to display the name might be,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, listen, we've covered a lot of ground here today. Let's wrap this up by telling our viewers a couple of things. Please get in contact with us. Our Twitter handles are down here. Our email addresses are just our first name at brilliantlabs.ca. And if you have technology laying around your classroom or in your makerspace, I'm sure that it's being used, but if you would like to throw an idea of a curricular outcome that you would like us to go through, we'll plan that out, preferably with you, and then we'll get ready for our next curriculum-minded YouTube live presentation.
For sure.
The other thing that I wanted to give you folks a heads up about is the student journal that we're getting ready. Now, this is just very much a draft version 1.0. But 1.1 is going to be coming out towards the end of October. This journal is meant for K through 12 students in order to iterate their designs,
Yeah.
right? To sketch them out, to create code. It's the engineers, entrepreneurs, inventors, innovators, catch-all for brainstorming.
Yeah.
So right now, the pages are likely just seen to be blank, but they are all
Grid lines.
grid lines.
Yeah.
And we also have some information on our Brilliant Expertise program. Basically, students can navigate to their website, to our website. It's not up yet, but this is just a heads up. And they can do certain tasks in order to earn different skills. And we have skills from everything from a design expert to a Makey Makey expert to a 3D printing expert, and things like that. So, thank you very much for KO. KO is relatively new to our team. However, we are excited to have him in the official capacity as innovation coordinator.
It was my pleasure.
Right? There we are.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And we will see you next time, or even maybe at Maker Faire this weekend.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Shall we hit the stop streaming button?
I think so. We should have a red button
we should.
for that, eh?
Boom! That's what we didn't do.
Ah.
We didn't hook up our arcade buttons. Next time.
Next time we'll
Switch
do that.
scenes. Boom, boom, boom. All right, folks. Thank you very much.